Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is episode 4 of my child sex abuse series. Today's video is specifically about the tunnel theory in child trafficking, specifically in Melbourne. There is never hard evidence for these sorts of things. It is engineered this way. What I can tell you is that all the circumstantial evidence is pretty much hearsay. Testimony from a source that then circulates online and is shared by many people is not really sufficient. The Melbourne tunnel theory has in fact gained a certain amount of popularity online, and there's even articles where they are calling for evidence for this specific issue. And this is from reputable newspapers like Australian Review. If a unique group of people online do not take first-hand accounts from a certain tragedy that happened in the 1940s as reputable evidence, then the same can be said that the first-hand account of a passerby does not suffice as evidence either.
Or out the window. See, they're still there working. Got ambulances. Can you see? Can you see it?
Yeah.
They even got tents up. Ambulance, fire brigade, police. This is at 10 to 10 on the Hume, just before Northbourne Road.
One would legitimately have to be a whistleblower, a victim, or someone who works within that industry for us, the public, to truly believe what is taking place with child sex trafficking. The following is found on Reddit threads and is constantly dismissed by the greater society. I personally am not so flippant in my attitude towards what the greater society or what the establishment deems as worthy. But these are the images that help solidify the child sex trafficking theory in Melbourne. Check that. It should be noted as well that even articles in Victoria by reputable newspapers, in this case The Age, are being written and are circulating because there has been a spike in child sex activity. According to The Age, more than 7.4 images of child abuse is circulating in Victoria. This is since COVID that these things have doubled in nature. At least 7.4 million files of child abuse material were detected circulating on peer-to-peer networks in the state in May 2020, a number that the police believe is likely to be a significant underestimate of the true level of activity. We're seeing a lot more traffic for IP addresses, a lot more activity in the dark web, a lot more activity in the white web. This kind of offending is almost 100% reliant on online activity, so the environment has been perfect. We've got people isolated at home in front of their computers and other devices. They're a captive audience, frankly. But the number of computers trading child abuse material tracked back to Victorian IP addresses has spiked 34% over the year, suggesting supply and demand in the illegal marketplace is growing substantially. In April, police arrested and charged a Melbourne man, and rescued several children aged 3 to 5 years after evidence revealed they had been victims of contact offending by someone who was already on bail. for child abuse related offences. Investigators were also recently able to identify 3 young Victorian boys who appeared in a child abuse video uploaded to a website 5 years ago that was found in the possession of a UK-based offender. The AFP and JASET teams nationwide have recently been involved in investigations where numerous children exploited on behalf of Australian offenders have been rescued from abusers. Westpac. The Bank of Westpac is also currently being prosecuted by anti-money laundering authority AUSTRAC over allegations its international payment systems have been used to facilitate acts of abuse in the international child sex trade. Detective Inspector Marty Allison said online exploitation was a borderless crime. The offender may very well be Victorian, but the victim may well be in Germany or Cambodia. It could be happening anywhere. Operations with the AFP and the Australian Border Force have also been seizing childlike sex dolls that are manufactured in China, shipped to Australia from Hong Kong, Singapore and Japan disguised as toys. But the JASET officers also acknowledge that child abuse is so prevalent that it is impossible to completely stop. There are 17,000 police in Victoria, and I reckon if we put them all onto JASET, we still wouldn't make a dent in the offending. I'm not kidding. Our number one priority is the rescue and recovery of children from any further harm, way over and above how many offenders we charge or how many charges they get. There's also another theory out there. The working theory is regarding earthquakes. The alleged claim is that there were 52 accounted for earthquakes, and these apparently aligned with the locations of where child sex trafficking takes place in the tunnels. This is the source. And finally, there are tunnels under Melbourne. Like, they exist. There's a reason that this is a working theory. There's a reason I don't completely believe it, but I could. So one of my viewers actually sent me these photos privately on Facebook. I don't know if he took the photos, but thank you, Mike. I hope that I have satisfied this particular topic for you and for those who were looking for this particular video. Check out the footage of Melbourne tunnels. And lastly, I have been acquiring some fabulous guests on my channel, but none more fascinating to me than the ones who are able to give us some authority, some information on these topics. And so recently I was able to acquire John Euler, who is an expert with child victims and child perpetrators. And I asked him, as well as the very esteemed Dr. Elizabeth Taylor, Australian expert on many different topics on homosexuality and the psyche. So I asked the two of them what their opinions were on the theory of the child sex abuse that's occurring, or the child trafficking that's occurring in the Melbourne tunnels, and this was their comment. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you was just about the idea of hidden tunnels in the cities that have the major state of emergency. So this is all just conspiracy theories, but do you give that any legitimacy, or do you think we should not operate on the far-fetched?
I've been watching those theories. I place no store by them until we see some results. I mean, there are tunnels. I mean, we know that there are tunnels in various places, whether they're used for these purposes and how extensive they are, and whether they're the I don't know, but I know that there's a lot that would be usefully hidden in tunnels, and I know that there are some alleged abuse victims from South Australia, for example, who talk about networks of tunnels and tunnels in the hills. And I don't see any reason to disbelieve their testimony, but I also know that there are much bigger stories about tunnels. Like, I'm prepared to believe in little tunnels, and the rest of it I'll wait and see, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. The reason that the COVID restrictions are so strict is because they're actually trafficking children underneath the ground. Now, that's a conspiracy theory. It's something fringe, so no one actually knows the facts about that. But there are people who drive by and see things like all these cops and police and ambulance there, and the people say that there are all these tunnels underneath the ground that they feel like is being used, stuff like that. Well, what do you make of those conspiracy theories, and do you think our premier is part of some child trafficking conglomerate that that we're not aware of? Like, I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah, good question. That's just my own perspective, because whenever you're dealing with crimes, it's always a challenge to try to ensure that your knowledge is based in facts. Because people,
exactly.
Right? People that perpetrate crimes are going to lie, and so that's why
yes.
those that do research into pedophiles, if their sole source of information comes out of the mouths of pedophiles in a structured interview setting, what's all that about? Meaning, I'm getting it from the pedophile's mouth, and I'm supposed to believe this. So that shows you the naivety oftentimes, but that's the information that will get into journals. But with respect to more organized types of trafficking, child abusers, so you have everything from the individual abuser all the way up to more and more abusers that abuse the same child, so to speak, or they end up being groups. That's probably the easiest way for people to begin to understand it. As a matter of fact, my first site, which is still up and running, churchprotect.org.
So I hope that I have presented enough information for you all regarding this topic. It's very difficult to ascertain a very specific judgment, because we don't want to operate on not sufficient facts, but we also don't want to get carried away by believing conspiracy theories. And so that's why I'm quite skeptical about this one. But again, I could believe it if we really actually knew. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like and share it around. That is far more important. These videos need to be shared, because once they are shared, people can then make educated decisions on what they think.